No. Mandy, are you good? I would like to call the April 19th, 2021 City Council meeting to order. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation given by Councilmember Sampson. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear Father, thank you for this time we can come together, and please help us to make the right decisions for our city and for all of its inhabitants. And please, Lord, help us to do your will. In Jesus' name, amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I would like to read a prepared statement. The Lake City Council has opened its public meeting. Since 1968, the city code has prohibited any person from making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or becoming boisterous while addressing the city council. Yelling or making audible comments from the audience constitutes boisterous conduct. Such conduct will not be tolerated. There is only one approved manner of addressing the city council, and that is to be recognized and then speak from the podium. Ms. Sykes, would you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Here.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Jefferson?
Here.
Mayor Witt? Mr. Coberline?
Here.
Mr. Helfenberger?
Here.
Chief Gilmore? Here.
At this time, Ms. Sykes, I would like to invite you, I believe you have an introduction for us.
Yes, can you hear me okay on this mic? Yeah, it says on. Because I'm not hearing it. I'll just step over and borrow Mr. Jefferson. Try again. Can you hear me now? Okay. I just wanted to ask Ms. Michelle Cannon to please stand. She is our new deputy city clerk. She's been with our office about a week, and we're so excited to have her with us. And she's going to be serving in my capacity during my absence should I have to miss a meeting. So welcome, Michelle Cannon. Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Cannon. We have no proclamations. I have no minutes. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I would like to make a suggestion. So we have a lot of folks in the audience. I would suggest if the council would agree to move item number 1 up so that Mr. Helfenberger can give his presentation prior to persons wishing to address council. I think it may be informative. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve the agenda and moving item number 1 up to the beginning.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. So having said that, Mr. Helfenberger, your item is up.
Okay, the Lusty Park update. Over the past 50 years, the city has invested over $2 million in the Lusty Park. There continue to be numerous city-permitted events held in the Lusty Park each year. Last Thursday, the Columbia County Board approved on a 4-to-1 vote to give to the city a county deed for the Lusty Park and transfer ownership to the city. At this point, we haven't received the deed yet, and that's all I have at this point.
Anybody have questions? Mr. Helfenberger? Thank you, Mr. Helfenberger.
Okay,
Sure, thank you.
Mr.
I
Helfenberger,
apologize.
yeah, did they gotta give us a time period on when we'll have those deeds?
I think Mr. Coberline has been talking with the county attorney.
Mr. Hill, I heard from the county attorney since last Thursday, and they are working on a legal description to include in the deed and then to propose it to the city. So I would think that it'd be ready within the week, probably within a week.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else from the council? All right. So now we're going to move on to persons wishing to address council. I have several. So first off is Mr. Steve Smith. If you would come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Steve Smith. My address is 377 Northwest Lona Loop, Lake City, 32055. I come today as a member of the Chamber of Commerce, the chair of the Government Affairs Council, simply for informational purposes, and that is that we have recently adopted a platform, an advocacy platform. Comes down to two main items. One is the mega industrial park, and two is infrastructure. And so our kind of goal here is simply to keep the discussion going, primarily for infrastructure. So I would just ask your attention on those matters. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person that I have to speak is Mr. Sylvester Warren.
Thank you, Chairman. Sylvester Warren, 832. I guess from the information that Mr. Effenberger just released, I guess there's no need of really having much of a discussion for those of us that may be present for the monument. I think it'd be a moot point, correct me if I'm wrong, Chairman, given the fact that the city doesn't even have the deed yet to discuss have any conversation about the Lusty Park or the monument or whatnot. So after knowing this information, I'm going to take my seat, and I see you at item 11.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Next person to speak is Mr. Sieber Newsom.
Hello, my name is Stephen Newsom III. My address is on file. I read in the paper that Mr. Sampson wanted to place a tax on the internet cafes for $5,000 per month because you needed extra revenue to handle the shortfalls. Your words were, we're in a revenue situation where we don't have enough coming in to offset expenses. You need money so badly that you are willing to tax the internet arcades rather than shutting them down, money over safety. Well, if you decide to remove the Confederate Memorial, you will have an even bigger revenue shortfall forever. Did you know that in the year 2010, that the Lusty Battlefield reenactment and the Lusty Festival here generated nearly $4 million in revenue, according to a study by the University of Florida? I'm sure in the year 2022, the attendance and revenue will be huge because people will be so ready to get out and enjoy life, just like they did at the Clay County Fair, record numbers. I am a member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans in Florida, and I've been in touch with Sons of Confederate camps members throughout the state, and I will contact each camp and many members, participants, and spectators, reenactors, and ask them to boycott Lake City and Columbia County. If the memorial is removed, that means no one staying in hotels, eating in restaurants, spending any money at all in your county and city. We have 9 months to plan and make sure this boycott works and hurts your city. Is what you really want? Is this what you really want? To placate a few and upset the majority? Giving in to the council culture and creating even more racial division in your city? Is moving a memorial worth millions of dollars every year in revenue lost? Think long and hard about moving the memorial, because if it is moved, the city, the county, and the majority will lose. Then there is a question about who actually owns it, since the state of Florida paid for it. I sent Mr. Helfenberger all the information. He said he sent it to you. I emailed it all to you last night. All the information I found. There's probably more. So in addition to the millions in lost revenue, you will lose tens of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees when a lawsuit is filed regarding the ownership. We have contacted an attorney, and money is being raised at this moment. If need be, I will fund it myself. Let's say you pay someone to move it, then you lose the lawsuit. You're gonna have to put it back, pay someone again. If it is broken, you're gonna have to pay someone to repair it and put it back. So why don't you just leave it where it is? If need be, put up another memorial to people. And
Thank you, Mr.
Ron, and
Newsom.
Governor Ron DeSantis supports us.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Next up, I have Crystal Constance.
Good evening. My name is Crystal Constance, and I'm here to address the media, whether it's Lake City Reporter or I think it's the Columbia Observer. I would like to ask you to, when you report what has been said and happens at these council meetings, if you would be neutral and unbiased and report factual things, not take pictures and put them together to change the narrative of the way it was. Because I was at this workshop, and when I saw something that was reported in the pictures, it was very misleading to the community and to people that wasn't present. So if you could just report the facts, because regardless of your opinion, the truth is going to always come out. So whoever, that you may have an opinion about, just be factual, because the truth will come out. So that's what I'm just asking you, to be a service and not a disservice to the ones that's not able to be here or be online. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Miss Mary Barlow.
Evening, my name is Mary Barlow. I'm the organizer for the local organization of Supporters of Southern History. In 1981, the city of Lake City held a city seal contest. There were 4 semifinalists. All of them included exactly what the city had requested. The artwork was the representation of the city war, the area lakes, and the Seminole Indian representation. Our local artist, Mr. John Stokes, won the contest in 1981, and this seal set from 1981 to 2002. In 2002, the NAACP came in and requested a meeting with the city council and the mayor, and they came to a decision that they would include a Union depiction where you have the Union battle and the Confederates battling together at Lusty, as well as the lakes and the Seminole representation. And that they had agreed upon, the city had agreed upon. In 2000, that set from 2002 until 2015, when open supporters of the Kemetic Empire, BLM, Black Panthers, and the NAACP requested the city council now remove the previously agreed upon seal depicting the Union soldier in the Lusty battle because they felt offended again. In 2015, the Lake City Reporter was asked to run an article requesting public opinion on what the council should do. The Lake City Reporter reported back 1 month later that the city overall wanted the seal to stay the same or go back to John Stokes. This was reported to the city council. The city seal issue went silent, and slowly you started seeing the depiction of the fountain and City Hall come about all over the city. I had asked myself in a meeting where the funding was going to come to replace all of this. Because the majority did not want it replaced, I was told by the mayor, which is not here, that it would be free because you own your own printing. I, as the business owner, know printing is one of the most expensive things you can have in a business. Now here we sit in 2017, Supporters of Southern History and other organizations worked with previous Wendell Johnson to have 2016-2081 ordinance passed to protect the monuments, all of them in the park. It was passed. Wendell Johnson and Stephen Witt signed it. Now 2020, we have a local activist requesting that monument be removed. On April 1st, we sat here at the county meeting, and those of us that are in support of those staying there suggested we would raise money to add other monuments to whatever you would like, just leave ours there, and we were told no. So here we are today, and we are asking again, this cancel culture is not only canceling the Confederate monuments, the Confederate flags, but it is also removing Union memorabilia as well, and we ask that you leave it be.
Thank you, Ms. Barlow.
And if you would allow us to add to that park, not take away. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, sir.
Next, I have Mr. Kyle Green.
I'm not going to come up here tonight and talk about the Civil War, or remind you how much that historical monument means to the hardworking Southern citizens in this community. The citizens that actually pay property tax and pay you the cash flow that you use to blow on meaningless projects. I know you are all beyond the matter and ready to wipe your hands clean of the issue. I'm sure you're just as tired as we are of hearing if this drag on. As everything goes lately, it's apparent that you have all made up your minds to appease the minority. Myself and many of your constituents are truly ashamed that you have decided to go and take part in the cancel culture, but I'm sure that that will be reflected on next election. In regards to the next steps, I know which will take place as soon as you receive the deed. I ask that when you do choose to move the monument, that you at least do it respectfully. When I say respectfully, I mean finding an appropriate location where it will not get damaged or destroyed. When bids come out from companies wanting to move the monument, I also ask that you all not use any company offered by any person that has spoke negatively against the monument on Facebook or during the meetings. A list of those individuals with screenshots can be provided upon request. I do not believe that someone who states the monument is offensive or a symbol of hatred should have the privilege of moving the monument. Instead, I ask that you use a Southern-owned company such as Utility Trucks and Equipment Inc. in Lake City. I believe that they would treat the monument better than anyone else locally. I know you all don't mind spending money, so please at least make it count. Also, since you want to get rid of the monument so bad, let's also end the Lusty Festival, because the city of Lake City doesn't deserve the great festival nor the revenue that comes from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Next, I have Kelly Crocker.
Good evening, Council. My name is Kelly Crocker. I reside at 3428 Laura Street, Tallahassee, Florida. And no, I don't live in Columbia County or Lake City, but I have spent a lot of money here. I have supported the Lusty Festival in years past. I've ridden in the parade. I've stayed in local hotels. I've eaten in local restaurants and bought gas at local filling stations. I'm a veteran of the first Gulf War, and unfortunately for you, if you're leaning toward getting rid of the monument, there was a war here. I know a little bit about war, and there was a war here. There was a hospital here where men died, and it's all of our history: red, yellow, black, and white. It's all of our history. If you decide to move the monument, I adamantly oppose, and I'm the Florida Division Commander of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and we adamantly oppose the removal of any veterans monument. But if you should move that monument, I ask you to put it right out here on Highway 90, right out here in front of this building, so it will have more exposure, because it is all of our history. If you move it, I won't be spending any more money in Lake City. I can promise you that. And I will call for a boycott of Lake City. Leave the monument, put it on a referendum, your next election. I understand from Commissioner Witt, it's like 2 years away. Put it on the referendum. If the people vote to remove that monument, I will be the first one in line to concede, and I will send you all an email saying you were right. The people don't want it removed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Crocker. I have Ms. Vanessa George.
Vanessa George, my address is on file. We have a lot of people talking about the majority. Yes, if you go with the majority is, we're always going to be outnumbered. But when you're looking at numbers and the majority is 90% and the minority is 10%, You have to look at what percentage of the 90% and what percentage of the 10% agrees. You can't say, oh, well, 90%, because in this country, minorities are always going to be outnumbered. So you can't say that. You can't look at things like that. Now, people want to threaten about they're not going to come back to Lake City, they're not going to spend any more money in Lake City. Guess what? We can have a festival that everybody can enjoy, and it's going to bring more money. It's going to bring people from surrounding towns. It's going to unify us. If you bring anything, especially surrounding food, crab, seafood, anything, any kind of festival that you bring here in lieu of the Lusty Festival, then I promise you, we want something to do in Columbia County. We all want to do something that's positive. We're going to all come down there and support it. So yes, you may not have the reenactors, but you'll have people coming from near and far to come to any positive festival that we have here in Lake City. Do not be held, don't hold yourself hostage to people saying, we're not going to come down here because you won't keep the monument or all this. And I know we're not talking about the monument, but think about a festival that will bring us all together. I'm quite sure the community will love it, enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. George. Mr. Glenell Bowden.
Thank you, Councilman Green. Members of the council, Glenell Bowden. As Ms. George said, my record is on file also. But I didn't intend to speak to this tonight. Really, I came to deal with another issue because I'm confident that the council is going to do what they need to do to unify this community. Contrary to what people say, I was born and raised, I live every day, right? So I buy gas here every week. I buy food here every week. I go to the restaurant here every week. So add my yearly contribution financially to the community, to the person who come in for a weekend. The local people contribute over a year's time more than the festival. And I'm not saying it's not a good financial benefit to the community, but that's the same argument they made in St. Augustine. In St. Augustine, they had a monument or a statue down in the center of St. Augustine. Went on for a couple of years. The Chamber of Commerce got involved in it. This don't make any sense here. It's been relocated. St. Augustine have not lost a single dime in revenue as a result of it. In fact, more tourists are coming because of that. So this idea that if you move that monument, there's not going to be a festival. Give me a break. I've been doing civil rights struggle and protesting all that all my adult life. And there's never been one I've been involved in that when we say that nobody's going to show up, that just don't happen. Now, nobody from the Legal South may show up. Nobody from the SSO, whatever that means, may show up. But there are people that's involved with the reenactment. They don't care nothing about what people are saying. They gonna come. Everybody don't come in for the reenactment. Some people come in to go downtown, shop with the vendors. I go down there when Trinity have their booth down there selling those smoked turkey legs. That's what I go down there to get. I don't go down there to buy no toy gun or to look at the artifacts. So there are people going to come to this community, rather than not these few, and some of them from out of town. At the last county commission meeting, one guy got up, he said he's from Nassau County, one from Baker County. Some guy came all the way from Levy County, you know. And so if this is an issue for our community, let our community decide. People vote for the council members and the county commission to make a decision on their behalf. If you put everything on the ballot, as Ms. Joyce said, that's not a fair way to do it. I'm gonna repeat myself at this time like I did last time. If George Wallace had his way, and the people of Alabama had their way, it'd have been segregation then, segregation now, and segregation forever, except for maybe a black football player. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. Mr. Warren, I believe you said you wanted to speak to another item on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
I understand. Would you like to speak at this time? You're waiting?
Yeah, I want to wait with that.
Yes, sir. I understand. And then I believe I have Ms. Coker. Be faithful, Coker.
Good evening. My name is B. Faithful Coker, 636 Southeast Bay Drive, Lake City. So I attended the county meeting where Mr. Heffenberger made presentation requesting the transfer of the Lusty Park over to the city of Lake City, and was moved by the presentation of citizens and wish the city had an opportunity to hear from those citizens. I agree with Mr. Boughton that citizens should be put in a position to make a decision. I just believe that putting them in that position requires that the item be put on referendum. I don't agree that all people with the same skin color hold the same positions on issues. And so waiting for them to come forward at city council or county commissioner meetings isn't going to give you a holistic view of what their positions are. I've been an African descendant my entire life, as have been all of my family members. My ancestry report says that I have 98% African heritage and 2% Irish heritage. And I have an appreciation for history. I stood in support of the efforts to have the Confederate flag removed from the city logo because the logo represented the city, all of the residents. And that's a different issue than is before us with regard to the monument and names of people who actually resided in Lake City and who served in a battle that ultimately they lost. The issue isn't whether or not they won or lost. The issue to me is that they're citizens of Lake City. I was dismayed by the information provided that different offers have been made to certain groups within the minority population, offering compromises. And it's discouraging that instead of there being a forum where the city, those who would be voting on the issue, were put in a position to hear the community's opinion about it, that they were relying on one group of people going to another group of people asking what their positions are. Either open up a public discussion on the monument where anyone can come in or speak, or put it on a referendum and allow that to be. I do not believe that the only people who are able to create a resolution for an issue that's going to benefit the entire community are those people who look like me. That's not true at all. I do not believe that had there have been a look at the majority of Americans, that there would still be slavery, segregation. I don't believe that at all. And I don't, because there are God-fearing people in Lake City, just as they are everywhere else. And God-fearing people respond to what is right for all people. So I do encourage you to put a referendum on the ballot so that citizens, all citizens, can make a decision.
Thank you, Ms. Coker. That concludes the persons wishing to address council. Now we're moving on to old business. Move that item up. So old business is covered. I think now we're on to ordinances. And the first item up is City Council Ordinance 2020-2174. Mr. Coberline, would you read that by title?
An ordinance of the city of Lake City, Florida, amending section 102-38 of the city code to provide for the waiver of impact fees for the development and construction of affordable housing, providing for the repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date period.
Is there a motion as to City Council Ordinance 2020-2174?
I'd make a motion to approve City Council Ordinance number 2020-2174.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? No discussion. Ms. Sykes, would you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Green?
Yes. Next item up is City Council Ordinance 2021-2180. First reading. Mr. Coberline, would you read that by title?
An ordinance of the city of Lake City, Florida, amending the city code to add a new section number 86-110.16 to Article 3, Chapter 86 which provides for the permanent closing of all that portion of Northwest Ridge Street lying in block 122 of the northern division of the city. Finding that the street was abandoned by the city, finding that the closing of the roadway will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, finding that it is in the best interest of the city and for the general welfare of its citizens to close the roadway, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for inclusion into the city code, and providing an effective date period.
Is there a motion as to City Council Ordinance 2021-2180?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move for the approval of ordinance number 2021-2180 on first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, would you call the roll?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Green?
Yes. That concludes our ordinances. We're on to resolutions. First up is City Council Resolution 2021-048. Mr. Coberline, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of City Lake City, Florida, approving and authorizing an annexation agreement with Price Creek LLC and providing an effective date period.
Is there a motion as to City Council Resolution 2021-048?
I'd make a motion for approval on City Council Resolution 2021-048.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, would you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Green?
Yes. Next, we have City Council Resolution number 2021-058. Mr. Coberline, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of City Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of an agreement with Tyndale Oliver and Associates Incorporated for consulting services to assist the city in accomplishing the fire rescue assessment project for fiscal year 2021 through 2022 at a cost not to exceed $26,686.00 and establishing an effective date period.
Is there a motion as to City Council Resolution 2021-058?
I move for the approval of resolution number 2021-058.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, would you call the roll?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Green?
Yes. Next, we have City Council Resolution 2021-060. Mr. Coberline, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of City Lake City, Florida, ratifying the mayor's extension of the state of emergency arising from the COVID-19 public health emergency period.
Is there a motion as to City Council Resolution 2021-060?
I move for the approval of resolution number 2021-060.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, would you call the roll?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Green?
Yes. Next item is City Council Resolution 2021-061. Mr. Coberline, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of task assignment number 6 to the continuing contract with Jones, Edmonds and Associates Incorporated for professional consulting services and assistance with developing a comprehensive utility master plan, authorizing payment for the consulting services at a not to exceed cost of $498,430.00 period.
Is there a motion as to City Council Resolution 2021-061?
I'd like to make a motion to approve City Council Resolution number 2021-061.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to mention something on this.
Yes.
This is brought to us from the Utility Committee. I think it's a good starting point. We're working together with the county on some things. If you read through the resolution, you'll see there going to be taking it up at their meeting. If we pass it, to see about funding part of the money as well. So I think it's a good first step to work with those guys as well.
And Mr. Sampson, that leads directly into a question that I have for Mr. Helfenberger. Mr. Helfenberger, this almost $500,000, I think, is not budgeted. So my question for you is, where are the funds for the master utility plan going to come from? What is the plan moving forward?
Okay, we have about 300,000 in the utility budget for taking care of situations where we're trying to unblock the system. We could transfer, this obligates the city to about $100,000. And it also is contingent upon having $300,000 rural infrastructure fund grant and $100,000 participation by Columbia County. So what you're obligating the city to is about 100,000 out of the 500,000.
So the obligation for the city is 100,000, and then we're talking about contingent upon grant funding and county approval. So that's a little bit different than the resolution or than the motion that Mr. Sampson made. Mr. Sampson,
It's
is
in
that
the
your,
resolution.
it's part of the resolution?
Yes, that's correct. Is that correct, Joe?
Yes, it doesn't, each step, it's our independent tasks, and you're not obligated to do any of them.
So we're not obligating the entire $498,000 from city funds?
That's correct.
Anyone else? Ms. Sykes, would you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes. Yes.
Vice Mayor Green?
Yes. Next, we have City Council Resolution 2021-062. Mr. Coberline, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the city by and through the Lake City Police Department to enter into a memorandum of agreement with Florida Department of Corrections for the purpose of establishing and maintaining support during an actual or anticipated emergency or escape at the department's Columbia Correctional Institution or Lake City Work Release Center, period.
Is there a motion as to City Council Resolution 2021-062?
Yes, I move for the approval of resolution number 2021-062.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, would you call the roll?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Green?
Yes. Next, we have City Council Resolution 2021-063. Mr. Coberline, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the city by and through the Lake City Police Department to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Veterans Affairs to provide backup law enforcement services as needed, period.
Is there a motion as to City Council Resolution 2021-063?
I'd make a motion for approval of City Council Resolution number 2021-063.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Sykes, would you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Green?
Yes. Next item is Department Administration. We have discussion and possible action, Growth Management Director Dave Young. Mr. Young.
Dave Young, Director of Growth Management. What I am requesting is I have a current position that we have been unable to fill. It's a building inspector apprenticeship position, and we are in desperate need of an administrative assistant to help us with all the paperwork. I would like to have this position changed from building inspector apprentice to administrative assistant. It is the same cost with either position.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Young?
You said it's the same cost?
There is no difference in the cost on that position. It's the same job position number.
Mr. Sampson.
So The main item is we can't find a building inspector apprentice, is that correct?
Yes, sir. We have been looking for over a year.
Mr. Jefferson, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have another question? You look like you had another question.
Well, I guess I was gonna ask from a workload perspective, how is that going to be handled? I know it's gonna be a workload shift for somebody.
Well, I'm handling all inspections now. It would be no different.
Okay.
I have another question.
Yes, sir. Go
So
ahead,
what's
Mr.
the
Benson.
backup plan if you can't do the inspection?
We have an agreement with Columbia County for them to be able to help us out. Same as if they needed our help.
So I also have a question. I know that finding a building inspector in the state of Florida is challenging, to say the least, especially qualified. And so I am also struck now that even finding an apprentice is a challenge. And so I am concerned long-term for the city if we're unable to find those individuals because the requirements are so stringent. I would ask, what is your suggestion for us in our community of our size to try to address that problem going forward? If we take this position off, even the apprentice position, how would we move forward in trying to fill that? Because I know it's a challenge.
At the next budget year, I will be requesting a building inspector position to be funded at a higher rate so we could attract somebody in. Right now, we cannot compete with the larger jurisdictions that are within our area or the third-party inspection companies
And
at
Mr.
our present rate of pay.
Mr. Young, just for the benefit of the other council members and for the public as well, can you talk a little bit about the requirements of what it is to be a building inspector and why it is so hard for us to attract one at the current rate of pay that we have budgeted?
You have to be a person of competent experience, a minimum of 5 years experience in the construction industry in a position of responsibility like a foreman or a manager or superintendent. You get somebody that's reached that in construction, they're earning a heck of a lot more than we can afford to pay them. So we're not bringing the people in.
And this is not only, I believe, for my fellow council members, this is not only a concern for us. I know many communities across the state of Florida are struggling to try to find competent people. I am taken back that we don't have, that we've not been able to attract an apprentice. My question is, if we had an apprentice, could you not assign the administrative details to that person? So in other words, as opposed to changing the job description, if the funds were available, could you just add it as additional duties?
No, sir. The state of Florida, when they approved local jurisdictions having an apprenticeship program for inspectors, they were explicit on what they can do and that they also already have to have a International Code Council certification as an inspector.
Outstanding. Thank you very much for
Yes, sir.
sharing that with all of us. So I would entertain if anybody had any other questions for Mr. Young while he's up there, or if there's a motion. Yes, Mr. Warren. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Young and Mr. Heffenberger, about a year and a half ago, I think this position came available, and there was much discussion about this. And one of the things that I recommended, and I think Mr. Cruz did it over at the county, and it's very hard because of the competing prices with the bigger cities to get building officials in place. But there's something that's called a provisional program that I begged Mr. Heffenberger, and I talked to Mr. Young about it. And one of the people who actually was willing to do the provisional program that we got a lot of backhand roadblock on was Lucius George. He filled out for the application. They did some backroom dealing and stuff and pushed him out. But he was 100% willing to be an apprentice, was 100% willing to go through the provision program like Matt Forsythe just did over with the county with Mr. Cruz. And so I think if we do a provisional program, at least that's my opinion, it's been very successful in getting Mr. Cruz the folks that he needs, because you can take someone from within, right? Take them through the provision program, build them up, and get them certified while on the job and being paid. It's been duplicated throughout the state. Most people are having very, very good success with doing so. And so that would be one of the things that I would recommend the council look into doing. I also suggested Mr. Young, like I did a year and a half ago. I think if we did that, we would have been had a building inspector by now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. So we know that it is challenging for the building inspectors and trying to attract those individuals. And so I know for me personally, I would encourage Mr. Young and Mr. Helfenberger to make sure that we're exploring all avenues. We're trying to attract the right people. It may be a pay issue only, but I want to make sure that we're doing everything else that we can as well, just because I know it's so competitive to attract those folks. But having said that, I think we're a little bit off topic. So is there a motion as to Mr. Young's request for the administrative assistant? One last time, I know that growth management has asked for an administrative assistant, and then to do away with the building inspector apprentice position. Is there a motion?
Did I understand him to say that you were planning to come back during the budgetary process or bring this request back during the budgetary process to further, or at least put that opportunity there to further explore that possibility?
I may have another question too.
Then in that case, I didn't realize we had more questions for Mr. Young.
Yes.
Mr. Young, would you please come back to the podium? I apologize for letting you sit down so quickly. Go ahead, Mr. Sampson.
Mr. Young, on the inspection, I was reading the document you wrote up, which I really liked because it's informative, but you're talking about these virtual inspections. Now, we're not going to be doing those forever. I'm sure we're going to get back to real inspections with boots there in the house or the business or wherever you're inspecting. When you get to that point, is one person able to do it?
Yes, sir. One person is able to handle all of the inspections that come up.
Do you know the time frame for us to switch from virtual back to in person?
It's up to the building official of each jurisdiction to set how the inspections are to be performed.
Do we have a transitional plan in place, or is it too early for that, or?
No, sir. I have not come up with any other than virtual for now.
Okay, no further questions.
Mr. Jefferson, did you have another question for Mr. Young?
No.
Mr. Hill, did you have anything? I just want to make sure before I have you sit back down, Mr. Young. So real quick, while we have Mr. Young at the podium, so is there a motion to replace the apprentice position with the administrative assistant?
I make that motion to replace it. I mean, we can't fill it, but we not losing sight of the opportunity that we're gonna take that away forever. He's gonna bring that back again, according to him, during the budgetary process. So I make the motion to grant him his request.
So I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Ms. Sykes, would you call the roll?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Green?
Yes. Next, I have item number 11, other items. We have discussion and possible action. Scheduled workshop was requested on February 1st. Mr. Sampson.
Yes, when we had scheduled a workshop back on February 1st, 2021 for the Police Advisory Committee, It was my understanding there was going to be a workshop for the members of our community, for our citizens, for the people to put input. And we did have a workshop and it was very informative. And we got a lot of information. And now we have a baseline plan to start with that the chief presented last Monday. But it's my recommendation that we go ahead and set, I would say, at least 2 workshops. And they need to be at a time when people can attend, preferably on a Saturday or a time when people are off work. And it needs to be well advertised. And we need to see what our citizens, the people of the city, want to do with this as well. I think just having one vision and one view and going straight on in and selecting that's probably not the best way to do it. We ran out the clock Monday last week, so there was no time for really any other action, 1, and 2, I didn't even know what we were being presented because we didn't get the documentation in advance. So the citizenry didn't have a chance to review it as well to know what they were even to be discussing. So I would like to see 2 workshops scheduled, and I would recommend 1 here and 1 at Richardson. That way we can cover both sides of the city and we can make sure that everybody has an opportunity to put their input in, because the best government is government where the people have input.
Anybody else have comments?
Do I need to make a motion?
If you would like to.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I would like to make go ahead.
I was under the impression that the workshop was the workshop that we embodied in the motion. There was the workshop that we had. And maybe I was confused.
All right. Any other discussion? Mr. Sampson, you have something?
Yes, I didn't think it was. I thought that we were setting up a workshop for the idea of community to provide feedback. What would they like to see? And I didn't see any of that. And I don't know, we didn't present it that way. We didn't advertise it that way. We advertised it as a single item agenda meeting. If you go back to the workshop November last year that was held, there was a place there. It seemed like that people could address things and bring up their plan. I would like to make a motion that we have 2 workshops scheduled within the next 30 days on a weekend day at both Richardson and here at the school board.
I have a motion to add 2 workshops to discuss, how would you word it?
The Police Advisory Committee.
Police Advisory Committee, 1 located at Richardson, 1 located at the current building we're in, the school board building, within the next 30 days on the weekend. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Are you saying both of them, your motion is to have both of them on the weekend?
Yes. And we could be flexible if you think there'd be a better time for people to turn out if we have them 2 different times. I was thinking that, to me, most people work, maybe a 5:30 or 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock on a weekday might be kind of tough. I mean, if you're just getting your kids out of school, it's hard to come on up here and address the government. But on the weekend, you have a better opportunity perhaps.
So I know I have the motion. Was there a second?
Yes, second. I second it.
Mr. Hill, you had the second. Yeah. Sorry, Ms. Sykes, I probably stole your role there a little bit. So I got a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the workshops?
Chief, would you like to have any input or anything? I didn't want to.
Yes, sir.
Step. Okay.
Hearing no other discussion, Ms. Sykes, would you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Green?
Yes. All right, final item that we have are comments by council members. I apologize. No, sir, I did not, and I also missed Mr. Warren. So forgive me, it's day 1, block 1 for me, so it wasn't intentional. I apologize. Mr. Warren, I know I have you up, please. Mr. Bowden? Yes, sir.
again, Vice Mayor Green, that's right.
Yes,
And Councilmember Glenn Bowden, 1156 Northeast Bascom Norris Drive. Since my address is a matter of public record anyway, so I don't need to act like I don't want people to know. But I wanted to come tonight to talk about that workshop that we had last Monday. I sat right over there by Mr. Licker stool for about 2/3 of the meeting. And the first part of the meeting, police program, training, all those things, that was good. That was informative for those who needed to hear. Where the problem went in, that caught me off guard and really offended me. And I left here angry, and I'm still angry. Is when the workshop went from talking about training and what they're doing to showing a video of Councilman Hill interaction with the police officer. I personally don't see where that serves no edifying benefit to the community. In fact, it actually is even further divided the community within the community on the other side of the railroad track. The very next day after that, a local pastor put on Facebook page a copy of that clip and said, Councilman Dick Hill is dangerous for our community. Well, I don't think that it was appropriate to put that out there. It was not in the public field. It has not been presented to a city council meeting. And the only thing, the impact of that was cause further division within the community. People talking about shouldn't have did that. And I take no pleasure in taking exception to the chief. I say that in other meetings. Chief is a mother in my church. I take no pleasure in doing this. But I cannot sit as a black man and see somebody present a video that serves no purpose except for to show a person in a bad light. It's almost like being in court and the prosecutor closing statement, then the defense have a closing statement, and the prosecutor come back with their closing statement. Where in this case, the person who was being thrown under the bus didn't have an opportunity to explain themselves. I'm not saying that what Mr. Hill did on tape was appropriate enough. I am saying it was definitely inappropriate, in my opinion, for that tape to be shown at a workshop that's supposed to be about police in the 21st century. That was clearly about, I'm not a liar. Well, that's true. I don't think the chief is a liar for that matter, but what was the benefit to you all? What did you all glean from that to see that consultation between the police officer and Mr. Hill? What did you benefit from that to see in the conversation between Mr. Warren and the police and his brother, with the lady and her daughter and her son? There was no earthly good reason for that to be shown, none. And it's having a real negative impact in our community. Give me just another second, please. It's having a real negative impact. Anybody who follows social media know that this has been, it's divisive. I mean, seriously divisive, and it's hurtful. I left here angry. I had not been that angry in a long time. I said all the way until the video got through Jake Hill, I said, this is enough. Because it made no sense. Made no sense. And none of us in the community knew it was going to be discussed. If we had known, if I had known that that's going to be part of the discussion, then we'd have had a chance to talk about it.
thank you, Mr. Bowden. Thank you for your comments. Mr. Warren, I believe you also wanted to speak to item 11.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start off by saying that there's an article by the Columbia County Observer, and it says chief answers to nobody. And that's a problem. And yes, our community is divided. And I think that to have sat here, Mr. Heffenberger, as her boss and allow her not to put an agenda where there's an ordinance passed that says certain things must be put in the agenda so people can have an opportunity to review it. And she did not do so. To display Mr. Hill in a negative light, to be vindictive, to prove her own self-righteousness is very, very unbecoming of a police chief, in my opinion. Now, why, out of all the people that she could have used in her presentation, she did not decide to use herself as a teachable moment when she committed voter fraud in 2012? She did not decide to use the mayor, who's had two DUIs up under her leadership. Why did she sing? She could have seen it out herself. She could have seen it out the mayor. Why Mr. Hill? And to cause Mr. Hill this great embarrassment, and she went a step further, even allowed a non-redacted piece of his social security number to be leaked. This man could possibly, because of the chief, be facing identity theft. This is a real issue. The chief, in my opinion, is out of control. She is hurting our community, and anything that the chief comes up with, anything with the Citizen Review Board must be independent. I think the chief has demonstrated that we need more oversight, that we need something independent from the police department because of the lack of transparency and accountability and the need to be vindictive over the need of serving the public with those who she disagree with. And let me also say this, Mr. Chairman. If the chief is gutsy enough to not care about people as a chief and a woman of God, when it says you have to go to your brother, your sister first, and she's gonna overlook the whole scripture and overlook her job as a chief, how is she demonstrating herself in private over at the police department? I'm more fearful and concerned as to what they hide and what they do over at the police department if she's so willing to blazingly do what she just did in a workshop. I think it's very appalling, and I think action needs to be taken. Either something needs to happen with Mr. Heffenberger that won't be a strong leader and deal with issues like this, or Ms. Gilmore need to be a woman and step aside, knowing that at this point she cannot lead our community any further. People are going to be dividing this community, and she's going to be going back to Tallahassee or wherever it is that she decides to leave when she leaves here, and our community is going to still be hurt because it has caused a major divide. It is real in our community. It's already a big issue between law enforcement and the Black community, and she further have wedged that division. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. I believe we had one for the audience real quick, like too, before I invite our next speaker. I just want to be clear that it was my mistake on item 11. Everybody had made an annotation that they wanted to speak, so I do apologize for that. So thank you, Mr. Warren, for those comments. And then I think Ms. Coker wanted to speak to that item as well. If I missed someone on that item, please see the clerk because it was not intentional. So I want to make sure that if you came here and you wanted to speak on that item, that you did see the clerk on that. So again, that was my mistake.
B. Coker, 636 Southeast Bear Drive. I sat during the workshop and I walked out frustrated as well. But I walked out frustrated because I also sat here the evening that the councilman came and in a very emotional discussion, did he describe being stopped by the police. And I felt that if the councilman himself had had that experience, then there had to have been some validity to the concerns. Had I not seen the video, then I would not have known that instead of the councilman's discussion to not only other members of the council, but the public had been truthful, but that in fact, the councilman had himself engaged in behavior that if he had been my child, he would have been put under punishment for the remainder of the year. It is absolutely inappropriate for a councilman or any official in any capacity to curse at an officer. We know that as adults. We know that. If the councilman had been in any other pair of shoes, that was a horrific situation. And he acknowledged it by apologizing or by stating in the media that he did not advise anyone to behave the way he did. When you talk about truth and integrity, you must demonstrate truthfulness and integrity. You don't get to pick and choose the issues. Drug dealers ruin our community. They take parents away from PTO meetings. They take parents away from kids at night. They take parents and turn them into prostitutes and criminals. That's what drug dealing does to communities. Truth and integrity sheds light. It prevents someone from being able to come before this council and use emotions and abuse of their power to convince us of a reality that does not exist. I am grateful for having been given the opportunity to see what occurred, and I did not have to rely on the councilman or the mother or any other citizen. We could see it. Matter of fact, walked away extremely appreciative, saying, wow, if they brought back that truth. But what Mr. Hill and any other person must do is recognize accountability means that you consider that there will be many Black men who will die because of that behavior. Leave Lake City and talk to police that way. You want to be accountable for everything you do and say. I'm the mother of 4 Black children, and I was appalled that Mr. Hill felt it appropriate to speak to a law enforcement officer in that manner. And you should be too. And you should be very grateful that you did not make a decision based on what Mr. Hill and any other citizen came before you and said, because those videos expose the truth.
Thank you, Ms. Crocker. The item number 11, I believe that we have scheduled the additional workshops. Yes.
Item number 11 is on my sheet as well.
Go ahead, Ms. George. I apologize if I missed you.
I do want to address the issue, and surprisingly or not, some of the things that Ms. Coker said, I agree with. Transparency. But what the video did not show is what escalated to that event. They didn't show all the numerous calls that Mr. Hill was getting about I'm being harassed. So after you get harassed and all these calls, of course, you're frustrated. But I'm not here to make any excuses for anything. What Ms. Coker pointed out was transparency. The main reason why we need a citizen review board is because we need transparency in our police department. Now, we're going to hold Mr. Hill to a high standard, but we're not going to hold our officers to a high standard. When we got an officer on video saying that he treat the Black community different than he treat the white community. But we're not going to hold that officer who took an oath to serve and protect to a higher standard, but we're going to come in on Mr. Hill. What about our chief on that? We cannot have 2 standards. We can't do one for Mr. Hill. You should have showed that video of your officers. That's what you should have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. George. So I believe that we have scheduled the 2 additional workshops to hear from the community about policing in Lake City and in our communities. So I would encourage you that if this is an issue that you are passionate about and there's something that you need for us to hear from you, such as the last speakers that spoke tonight, I would encourage you, please come to the workshop. We are going to publish those dates, and I do want to do that. So having said that, we're going to move on from item number 11, and now we are to comments of council members.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out to see. About the video, again, I was wrong. But again, half of my district is 50-50. And at our last meeting, the chief clearly brought that to my attention, that I don't have anything to say about the plantation. I don't get calls from the plantation. I get calls from the west side and the east side and the north end of Lake City. I was wrong, but to see the police department and the Black community doing what they do is wrong. On this particular day, me and my grandson was out for a walk. So we walked down to the corner of Hendricks Way and Railroad Street. So I looked down Railroad Street and I saw 2 police officers on the east end down near Oliver Church. So I'm figuring that they had a funeral going on. So again, we continued to walk. So again, back to the phone calls. People began to call me saying they're down there harassing folks. So I can only do so much. I get calls after calls after calls about the police department. So the following day, I leave my house, going out 90. Evidently, the police officers had seen me when I leave, between leaving my house and out on 90, they saw my truck. But when they saw me and I saw them, I said, they're gonna stop me. And sure enough, they did. When I got to Sister Welcome to make my left-hand turn, the officer that stopped me, he kept the traffic back so he could get over behind me. When I stopped, when I made my turn, he pulled in behind me, put his lights on me. Automatically, I'm frustrated because the same calls that I'm getting about the police department is happening to me. Again, I want everybody to know that I regret what I did, but our police chief, she says she don't lie, and 9 times out of 10, when a person tell you that they don't lie, they lie. So again, I'm sorry for that video, and I'm sorry it had to come out the way it did. That's all I have. Oh yeah, one more thing. On May the 1st, from 1 to 6, I'm hosting Unity Day at Memorial Stadium, and I want everybody in this building to come out and share on that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Any other council members?
I got one more question,
Yes,
one
sir.
more. Wednesday, we're having the utility meeting. I know Mr. Smith made a comment about the Chamber of Commerce. I think it'd be a good meeting for you to show up to. We're going to discuss the utilities and infrastructure quite a bit.
All right, we encourage you to attend all the meetings that you've heard about tonight. Tell your friends, they will be published. And with that, we will adjourn.